In an effort to approach both sides of the whole learning and teaching connection, we invite each institute a group of students to share their thoughts with the participants in the Summer Institute. And this is this year's group of students. We'll begin with a brief video, and then we'll meet some of the students from across ODU's variety of majors and delivery methods, who will answer questions that you may want to pose to them. But I want to introduce the students first. Far to my right is Justin Sanudo. He is a recent grad, woohoo, in accounting. And Justin is a distance student. You'll see him on the video, and he'll look a little bit different, which will give you a chance to see what it's like if you teach a distance class. This is what the students look like to you. Beside him is Jamie Hughes. She is a junior in communications. She's a full-time student, and by the way, also Miss Virginia. Thank you, Jamie. Beside me is Michelle Cargill. She's one of my former students. She's a second-year grad student in speech pathology. Thank you, and welcome, Michelle. And beside her is Will Chambers, a senior in computer engineering. Did I get it right, Will?
Right.
Good, computer engineering. So, with that said, let me see if I can pull up this video so that you can view it.
A good teacher is somebody who's willing to work with their students and willing to give them the best possible education. A good teacher is also somebody who's willing to change their teaching style to best fit each student.
I guess they have to be people-oriented. They have to care about the student.
In order to become a good teacher, first of all, you just have to be passionate about what you do. In order to engage the students, you really need to come up with something that you really are passionate about, and so you can just ignite the audience.
Someone willing to listen and someone willing to question.
Someone who's willing to listen and who's actually going to take it seriously.
A good student is probably a good listener. Somebody who is capable of absorbing a lot of knowledge, and once again, it's probably still, I have to say, passion for learning.
A good learner is somebody who takes advantage of what they learned in class and they can actually apply that in the real world.
A good learner is somebody who comes to class with an open mind, who leaves some of their prejudices at home and comes to class willing to learn.
A good learner is somebody who is, first of all, has a desire to learn, right? And you have to be very studious, and you have to set realistic goals, and you have to be able and capable of achieving those.
Just my work. The quality of work catches the teacher's eye, and then when they hand out the papers, they're like, oh, he did good work.
I think helping connect with the professor, personally it's always been a thing. I always go and introduce myself to the professor. You're in a class of 300, you have to make yourself known because the teacher's not necessarily going to have time to make that initiative to get to know you on a personal level. So after connecting with the teacher and really listening to what they're saying, not just, like I said, regurgitating information, once you actually process it, that's allowed me to take it out of the classroom and use it in my daily life.
So I feel like I connect to the teachers more by, emailing them or talking to them outside of class or going to their office hours.
If I was king for a day and able to change some things, I wouldn't make learning so structured. Sometimes we sit there and we have to go by certain procedures and certain things that are set out by the state or by the school or by nationally. I wish there was the ability to sit down in a circle and learn from each other, but be guided by a professor.
And I've had a lot of success when teachers do incorporate different types of learning, not just book and lecture. When they incorporate PowerPoints, when they ask you to go out and experience this, what did you learn from it? So I think just when teachers, if and when they do expand their opportunities and their experiences in the teaching and don't just stick to one way of teaching, when they use different outlets such as media and going out there and experiencing, like I said, that's when you're going to get the most gratification of what the students are actually going to learn and process.
I would probably, number one, I would probably make all the teachers take some type of technology course. Yes, I would, because some of the teachers, you find that they might not know how some of the things work, and the students have to come and try and tinker with some stuff, and you know, like sometimes it's not the best. It takes a lot of time out of class.
No homework for a week.
I love the campus. The campus is absolutely beautiful. And I love the professors. You know, every professor that I've had has been really good so far. And
as an international student, I do really appreciate that the sense of diversity, and faculty has been very supportive, and the commitment, it's there, it's in the air, so we really appreciate that.
I feel like once I get my degree and people notice that it's from Old Dominion University, like they can start asking me questions like, how was the school, how was your experience? And I can tell them, you know, I had certain teachers that helped me a lot. I had counselors and advisors that did certain things for me that prepared me for the outside world.
With that, we just want to open it up to you. Do you have any questions for these students? And I might pose the first one. Please wait for a moment for the microphone to reach you, but I would like to throw out to the students the question that I remember when I was in grad school was a big question that was always posed to me. How do you feel about group work?
Personally, I've had bad experiences more than good with it. As a group project, the only reason, when you do a group project, the only reason I say that, at least as an undergrad student when I was doing my work here at ODU, we'd get into groups, and I ended up feeling like usually I ended up doing most of the project, and then the others just kind of got the grade. So, but then in grad school, I find that's a little different. You have more serious students in grad school, so from that aspect, as a grad student, I've had a better experience in group projects where there was more people willing to give more input and work together. And you end up with the same grade, but I no matter how you did it usually, but I'd say I ended up learning more from it than the students that didn't participate at the same time. So when it came time for tests, that's when it came through shining if you did actually participate. So it had its good and bad side.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I agree for the most part with what Michelle was saying. I think group work can be a good thing and it can also be a bad thing. Definitely in the lower level classes, I don't think it's a good idea, especially when you have mostly freshmen, sophomores, sometimes juniors. You're dealing with people from different majors. They have different intentions on the class. So then you get more diversity. You're going to have kids who aren't all about the class and they're just there to check the box. And then you have the kids who really are passionate about what they're doing and they really do want to get some kind of reward for what they're learning. So like she said, I think when you get to the higher level classes, when you are in grad school, I think group work is a good idea because you're going to be focusing group work with people who are all passionate about the same thing. So you're going to get more of a response back from them and it's going to be a better experience as a whole.
Sorry. We want to make sure everybody can hear everything. Thank you very much, Jamie.
I've had group work projects in my biology class before, and I understand the frustration because I've been there too as a college student of, you know, having somebody just sit there and get the A or B that they didn't even work for. So what I do with my group projects is I have a rubric for them. And everybody gets graded on the group project, but everybody in the group fills out an individual contribution rubric for their group members and sends it to me. So they can, and it's anonymous. They don't have to they just have the person's name that they're grading, but not the person who is the grader, and they send it to me. So everybody in the group gets to rate the person in the group. And if those people that did not contribute anything or very little, they will not get the same grade as people who contributed more and helped the group out. So that helps, and the students know this in advance, so that helps to kind of level the playing field so that everybody knows what they're expected to do in the group work and that they will get graded on their contributions by their other group members. So that kind of puts a little pressure on them to be more responsible in their group work, whether they're into the course or not into the course. It's not about the course information, it's about working together.
Good point. Other thoughts about group work or any questions for our students? It's not often you get to talk to students you're not grading. Oh, Betsy, here. Okay.
Oh, yeah, just to piggyback on the group work, and then I think I have a question too. But a question for the students about group work. The keynote speaker mentioned about having groups of 2 to 3 students as being kind of optimal size. Do you think that if, let's say if in my class, if I were to do group work, which I do, but do you think that I should make sure that the size is smaller? So would having 2 to 3 students create perhaps less of that frustration or tension where only maybe half of the group's working and half of the group's not working?
I believe so. That would be fine to have a smaller group because especially with engineers in my major, we like working in smaller groups because, like the lady was saying, if you have too many people in the group, and especially if they're like slackers, then they're probably not going to do a lot, because I know recently with one of my groups that I just had for computer science, we had to do programming. We had to, one person had to do a presentation, one person had to do programming, and another person had to navigate the programming, so telling the person how everything should be. So that was good, and then we had something, we had the presenter, programmer, and like somebody that overlooked everything make sure that everything is fine. So, and with that person who had looked over it, they did a good job at it, but they didn't catch some of the mistakes that we did. So it kind of like cost us a little bit, but you had being a smaller group is helpful.
Okay. And then I had a question, not about group work though. Yeah. But in my classes, students are, as in a lot of our classes, they're sitting so long. They're just sitting. I'm trying to figure out, students, how can I incorporate activities, things for students to move? I want them to get up, move to the front, move to the back, move to the side, kind of thing. But some way to get the movement so they're not sitting for that hour and something or 2 hours or.
As they were talking about in the last presentation, putting groups together, forcing throughout the class that different groups, you'd have to take this student who has to go with this group, so getting them up, moving them, placing them in different areas throughout the classroom, and make them perhaps sit there through the next portion of the lecture, have them talk, and then go back to where they were at, or things like that. Yeah.
I had a class this past semester, and with a communications professor, it was comm class, and she literally it was simple stuff, and it seemed silly at first, but it wasn't. She really had a purpose for it. She didn't want her lectures to be so monotonous, so she literally made us stand up, and we would stretch, or we would literally walk around the classroom, or we would go in the front and we would perform a skit, and everything that she did was relevant. So if it was a skit, it would be like, okay, what I just taught you, go do a skit about it, give 3 examples of something that I just did, show the definition, and then the stretching, and she even had us come in on the first day and we had to hug the person sitting beside us. So,
communications.
yes, it gets you, you get to know the people around you, and I think when you force people to stand up or stretch or something, it kind of breaks that awkwardness. So then it's like, okay, we're all in this together. You don't look at your peers as looking at you. It's like, okay, we're all in this together. So something silly like that, it really does break the ice, and everybody's more comfortable, and then often it'll spark a lot more communication.
Now, if we can go back to group work for a second, as a distance learner, I find that if you're in a classroom, it's difficult to look at that person in the eye and say, I didn't do the work. As a distance learner, it's a lot easier for somebody sending an email saying, I didn't have time to do it. So you find that your stronger students are more often doing the majority of the work. So sometimes in distance learning, it's difficult for group work if your goal is for them to learn about that work. It's a little bit better if your goal is to learn about cooperation and how to deal with some of these unforeseen events.
Interesting. We have another question.
Well, it's not, first it's a statement and then it's a question. I actually teach faculty and I teach online, and I'll tell you, they're not very good with group work either. So it is, and they have more complaints than you all do, okay? Because their stuff is more important. But you do have to understand that group work is about going out into the real world. This is about communication. Even if you're working a part-time job at Barnes & Noble, you're working with a team. You're working with a team of diverse people who have different priorities in their life and that are a different point of it, and you need to learn to work together. That is why group work is normally enforced, especially in distance learning, because it's harder to work with people when you can't see them face to face. Right? And because you can't sit down and get the emotion of them and get to know them the same way. And I teach a lot of distance learning. I had I'm come from the community college system. I had the distance learning peer group. I teach about distance learning. And you have to understand that this is important, because our job is to make you guys good citizens and go out and be effective in the workforce. And you may not like it. It's like eating your broccoli when you're 5, but you do it because there's actually a good reason for it. It is about the delivery of the instructor to make you understand what the process is and why you're doing it. And it's not just something because we all want you to just work together for no apparently good reason. I think that the 5 is normally, the research has shown that 5 is usually the most that can actually work together in a group, because you're going to have the one that's not going to do anything. You're going to have the one that's going to want to take over. And my question to you, if I'm sitting here talking to you all, I'm assuming that you are 4 of the students if in a group that would be the ones to maybe take over. The question is how do I stop you as an instructor, because I don't want one person doing all the work. How do I stop you and let you let go and just let the group work? Because you have to learn how to work with the group and not always be the one to do all the work. You're the ones that probably want the A's. You're the ones that probably get the A's if you're in front of this panel. So how do I get you to just let go and let people be responsible? I'm not going to hold you responsible, and I don't think anybody in here for group work holds you responsible when you've done your part when the other person hasn't. So how do I get you to let go and not get so anal retentive about it that it stresses you out that much that you focus too much on that and you're not focusing on the rest of it? That's what my question to you is.
Well, I think that's just a cultural thing, first of all, because you're not going to stop the good students from doing the work. One of the things she stated earlier was she put good students with not so good students for the group work. I think let's assume you have 2 group projects. That's good for the first project, and then move those not so good students into a group in their own, so that they can carry what they've learned from the better students into that new group. These better students are going to come together and they're going to work however they're going to work. You're not going to change that. They want the A. It's not going to change. But maybe you can raise the level of those lower students up to those better students.
Well, then you're asking me to, and I have a big voice, so I don't really need the microphone. What I'm thinking then is, unfortunately, we normally don't have the time to do 2 group projects. And so you don't really know. And so I agree. If I have group, I'm an English professor, so in peer groups, sometimes you split them up and you put the ones that aren't working well, that don't do any of the work together, because then they're forced to do the work, and you put all the good ones, because the good ones learn from each other. Now, just because you're an A student doesn't mean you can't learn from the D student and the F student. But my question then is, if you only have the one project and you can't break them up, then how do you kind of, I'm still asking, how do I get you guys to let go and kind of make the group work? Because sometimes that happens if you get you have too much of a strong parent, so to speak. The kids don't learn.
But in the real world, that's what happens too. So I think that maybe if you segregate the work that needs to be done, and then they have to come to you before the project is done, showing you what each person is going to be doing, that may help. But again, it's difficult to say your top speeders for them to quit doing what they're doing. It comes down to.
Kimberly? Oh, sorry. Ian.
We're done with that?
You're
I have
on.
a new question.
Okay, new question.
I teach a 100 level history class. And so one of my biggest challenges, and I think it might be the same for a lot of other faculty, is to get students to actually read outside of class. Because I would like to spend a lot more time in the classroom doing activities, doing more hands-on and engaging things, and instead I find that I have to recover the material that should have been read. And that was one thing that our keynote speaker suggested, was giving a course map or objectives for reading. Do you have some other suggestions for us on how we can get students to read, particularly at that lower freshman, sophomore level, outside of the classroom?
I learned early when I was a freshman, and I think the best thing to do with that, the solution would be to have quizzes. Like, because as a student, but as a student, that will help us out, because I know when my teacher said, read over these chapters, we're going to have a quiz on the next class, I'll be like, oh, I need to read. So, I mean, that would help out a lot.
I agree with what he said. I don't think I will put it out there, I don't like reading. I'm a comm major. I'm going to learn by talking to you and going out and experiencing things. So history, like that type of learning, is one of my hardest subjects. But I don't think it's necessarily that the student, for most part, I don't think it's not that students don't want to read. It's that they don't have the time to read. It's hard to find that time to sit down and read for an hour and a half. So I think the quizzes is a great idea. I know that when there is a quiz, students are going to make a note to go over those key points. And then I think if you lessen the reading, just don't have it, you can have it more often and have it in shorter amounts. Classes where it's like, okay, go read a chapter Monday night, and then Wednesday you're going to be quizzed on it, or like 2 chapters a night. Realistically, it's not going to happen even if you have 2 days. So if you lessen the reading, make it shorter, and then you do have quizzes, I think you'll see a lot better responses.
And to piggyback off of that is, use these other medias. Go to YouTube. There's so much stuff on history on YouTube. Tell them, I guarantee you 99% of your students will go to YouTube to watch that video. Mm-hmm. Break up each week. Don't make it a reading assignment. Make it something different. Make it an article that's not in a textbook, a YouTube video, something like that. Break it up for them.
I'm gonna go back to the groups of students working on project, because I'm in charge of the senior design project for the engineering technology department, and I run into that problem a lot. Finally, I decided that once they are assigned the project or pick the project, and we encourage them to work together. I mean, I would rather have 2 or 3 or 4 working on a project rather than one. However, sometimes if you have a off-campus student way remote somewhere, you have no choice. But when you have a group and you want to assure that everybody does some work, you ask them in the beginning to sit together or talk together and decide who will do what. Put some steps in there. He will take that part, she will take that part. So it is defined from the beginning who's going to do what. At the end of the project, I require an oral presentation, and each one of the students in the group has to present their part of the project in front of the whole class and some other audience.
Okay. On our way to Kimberly, I think. Yeah. Thank you, Mustafa.
like to ask the students, if you were king or queen for a day, what would be the number one and number two things we could do as faculty to facilitate your best learning experience here at ODU?
I would say incorporate more social media into learning. As teachers, I think and faculty, I think it's important to realize that in today's society, the younger students, we are a generation that is so focused, unfortunately, on social media. It can be a blessing and a curse in the same thing. But I think if faculty and teachers realize the influence that we have of social media, how much we look at it, how much we use it. We do use it all the time. Unfortunately, some students gravitate to using social media in class versus listening. So I think if you can find a way to incorporate social media in learning, you're going to find outstanding results, because it's not going to come off as learning or studying. It's going to be doing something that they enjoy on a daily activity. And like Justin said, YouTube, it's a great way to teach. You can find anything on YouTube. So I really can encourage that from a student perspective.
Other thoughts?
You know, sometimes it's looked at badly, but structure is a good thing. If the student understands what is expected of him, he will do what he can to reach that. A lot of times, either in real world or here in school, it's difficult to determine what is wanted by the student, or what the teacher wants, what the student needs to do. If you're able to clearly give a criteria of what you want, I will find that a lot of the students will meet your criteria as long as they know what it is.
Can I just take a second and say, while Justin was speaking, it ran through my mind, this is kind of an interesting picture of ODU, because fully 20% of our students, I believe I'm right about this, are distance students. So here's a 25% of the panel is a distance student. So almost this is ODU. Thank you for coming all the way from Richmond, Justin. Christine?
Oh, well, thank you for organizing this. It's really wonderful to hear from the students, and such very motivated students we have here too. Just back to the group work topic. Well, I was always quiet in class as a child, and still am. And one technique that I really like and wish I had done as a child was created by Dr. Spencer Kagan at the University of California, who does a lot with cooperative learning. And in terms of group work, he has maybe 3 different groups on 3 different topics. And sometimes he has the chips. Every time you participate, you put in a little chip in the center of the table, and then you count how many times you spoke or reacted according to the number of chips, which I've used in class as a token method, I've called it, which works well for participation in class discussion. Also, he has a very interesting way of assigning roles to people. So one person might be the note taker and has that role. I love to write, so I always love to take the notes. Another person might be called the encourager. I love that role too, because I like to say, oh, that's a good idea, or oh, I agree with that. Another student would have the role of asking the questions. Another would keep them on task. Well, now Mary has the floor. Oh, John, somebody else wants to speak now. Another person might be the researcher and go to another group to get research, and so forth, so that all 5 or 8 people in the group have a role. And another might be the teacher and give the ideas. So I really like the idea of encourager, because I just like to say, oh, that's great. I don't have anything profound to say spontaneously, and I just don't do well in discussions. So everybody has a different role in a group. That's
a great
the work
idea.
of Dr. Spencer Kagan.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Right here?
I have a question to ask the students regarding technology in the classroom. What has been your best experience with faculty using technology to help you? And what's been your worst experience with faculty using technology to help you?
Let me just start off by saying, if you're going to do something in class, practice beforehand. Okay, that's the best thing. You know, it's a double-edged sword. We all know that the students are multitasking sometimes, and they're doing other things while listening to you. Drawing their attention to you, or to the front of the classroom via a website, screen, some kind of audio, something to draw their attention away from their cell phones and from their computers is the best way to get them to interact. Because as a society now, we're kind of stuck in our little bubble, and we don't interact as much. And if we can move that bubble to the front of the classroom, it's able to do it. But if you haven't practiced it, or you have technical problems, or you are unaware of how the system works, you're distracting. It's detrimental to the classroom.
I like PowerPoint slides. I just feel like I learn well with those. You have your thick books you have to read with your class, and then you have these PowerPoint slides that even whether you did the reading or not, PowerPoint slides are going to help. But even if you have done the reading, it just, I don't know, it simplifies it and allows you to focus on those key points that you really need to take home with you. And that's technology I've liked. And being an older student, I didn't grow up with technology, so I've had to learn a little bit how to use technology myself. Even just Blackboard and stuff, to me, that was totally new. I had to get a computer when I started. And then, that to me was the strong point in technology. I really like PowerPoints and being able to follow them, and just it seems more clear. And you can still incorporate conversation from the students or input from the students with them. You can just put a question up there on the PowerPoint, and you don't go on to the students actually participate and answer the question. So, and they don't want to sit there and just stare at this one slide all day. So, it'll get them to participate more.
I think diversifying technology within the classroom, you're going to see a lot of great responsiveness, especially for the long classes. I think you should use all types of technology, and it's not going to seem so monotonous versus if you have the teacher lecturing from the book for an hour and a half, or if you have the teacher lecturing from the PowerPoint for an hour and a half. Start with the book, or maybe start with the PowerPoints. Do a couple PowerPoint slides, and then maybe go to the book and have them do something from the book. And then maybe if you go show a YouTube clip or something, and then maybe if you go to a movie later, if you diversify what you're doing in the class and don't stick to just one outlet, I can guarantee their attention span is going to last much longer because you're switching it up, so it's not going to seem like they're taking in the same information, but it's going to seem like different outlets. And I think you're going to see a lot of great responsiveness with that. And one thing that I personally really liked in the classroom was we were forced to, one way, it was one professor, I'll never forget her, we were forced to learn the information because she said, if you don't come to class, you're not going to get this information. She said, yes, you're great on attendance, but that's not why I'm doing it. She had the information that you could not get out of the book and you couldn't get online. It was on the PowerPoints. And what the information she gave on the PowerPoints was on the test. So you were forced to come to class, and that forced you to listen, because if you didn't come to class, you didn't listen, you weren't going to find that information anywhere else.
And don't limit technology to the classroom. Blackboard is a very underutilized asset. Learn how, as teachers, learn how to use it. And the students will go on there outside of their classroom to learn about these things. Put on an article about something you talked about during class, things that relate to the real world, and I guarantee you'll see better students if you do things like that.
I would like to add, just in line with what Justin said, in terms of Blackboard, there is that function of blogs, the blogs tool in it. It's very helpful, especially in terms of reading requirements, when you want to make sure as an instructor that your students are going to read the material. Then you can add a component in the course. For example, 10% goes towards the blogs. So every reading that I have to do, they have to enter a blog, a journal of their reading. And then at the end of the midterm, the midterm phase or the final phase, then you go as an instructor and you make the number of, you collect the number of blogs that your students have made. And also something else which is really helpful is to ask your students also to do peer reviews of their blogs. And the reason you do that is that you want to make sure that nobody steals someone else's blog. Actually, last semester it happened to me in my class where I had one student who was stealing the blogs of other students. Wow. And 2 students found out that she was stealing those blogs. So it was really serious.
You know, in a class that I had, to piggyback on that, you had to reply to at least one blog a week. Well, you know, 90% of the time you can be like, I agree, that kind of thing. But you get that maybe 5% that a discussion really begins on that. And that's where these students are really learning. You can sit here and read all you want, but until you talk to somebody about it and express your opinions on something and then learn from other people's opinions, that's where it's beneficial.
And I would like also to add something relating back to the idea of the group, like the number of students that are required usually, the ideal number of students in a group. My experience is that 3 students per group is the ideal number. If I put, for example, 2 students in what makes a pair, usually if I have like a weak student and a strong student, the strong student will be stuck with the weak student. If I have 3 students, usually there will be two people working hard, and then the third one will be pushed to work hard. If I have 4 or more, then what happens is that you have 2 students who are working hard usually, and then one is slacking off and the other is encouraged by the other person who is slacking off. So optimally, 3 in a group is the ideal number.
Up to Elizabeth.
I thought I'd take this to a different perspective from the librarian point of view. I'm one of the librarians here at ODU. Is this on? Okay. I know that doing a research paper is probably not one of the most favorite things that a student wants to do. However, the librarians actually do have a service for the instructors to come in and be like a lecturer to teach the students how to do a research paper for their class. Okay. I was wondering from your own perspectives, have you ever had that experience, and how that worked for you? And if you haven't had that experience, what did you do to gain that knowledge to do your research paper?
My favorite thing with all research papers, especially as I've gotten to the higher level classes, is being able to pick your topic, not necessarily in the sense of, oh, write whatever you want about, but write about what you want within this category. And then the other thing that I liked was there were required, for the bibliographies, there were required forms of sources that you had to use. So it wasn't just 5 sources. It was 3 websites, 2 online articles, 2 books. So I think when you allow the students to somewhat pick what they want to talk about, you're going to get a better paper because it's going to be something they're passionate about. And then when you require the diversified different outlets that they are gaining the information from, you're going to see more diversity within the paper because it's going to incorporate more opinions, but all relating back to the student's main opinion.
You know, as a distance learner, you have to understand the further away you are from ODU, the weaker the infrastructure. We don't have those kind of things that we can go to. And perhaps that's something that as instructors you can push for, that some of these things go online. There's no reason why an instructor can't go online to talk about some of these things.
Yeah, the librarians are available for distance learning.
And a lot of us don't even know that.
I was about to say the same thing. I didn't even know that.
Well, I want to throw out one word. We're coming up to the time where we have to wrap, and I just want to say one word, and I want each of you to say one brief thing about it. Can you multitask?
Yes. Yes, I can multitask.
That was one thing.
You want me more elaborate?
Just a little more. A little more.
Like with multitasking. Yes, I can multitask because
See, we're not sure you can, because we see you texting in our classes and we get a little nervous.
Oh, that multitask.
That multitask.
Oh, okay. Well, me, I'm not really like that in class, because if I'm reading the slides there, I'm also reading it on my tablet or anything. And just
So you're really on your laptop?
Yeah, I'm sometimes I'll be on my laptop,
Okay.
but I don't really be on any other type of site.
Okay,
because
Michelle.
I'm not a good multitasker.
Ah.
No, definitely not. I need, in fact, usually I don't even bring my computer. Not that I go to other sites. It's just, to me, I'm more focused if I'm handwriting out notes.
Okay.
And it sticks better up here. And being a mother of 6, my time is limited outside of the classroom. And so, to me, I use that time to try to get it in my head by writing it.
Okay. Jamie.
For the younger students, for my generation, I can guarantee you we can all multitask. It's just a different type of learning that we have been cultivated to. When I'm studying, I have my music going, I have the TV in the background noise, I have my phone in hand, and then I'm also taking notes and have my laptop. I'm taking it all in, but because I'm spending certain amount of times on each different form of media, it's just a different form of multitasking. So yeah, I definitely like to multitask.
Justin?
Everyone can multitask. It just determines how efficient you are at it.
Right. There we go. There we go. Well, thank you very much to our 4 students. We really appreciate your coming.